I was supposed to be out of town that night. That's the detail that mattered. Jessica knew I was supposed to be gone. I had a business trip, some conference 2 states over, booked weeks in advance. My flight had been delayed twice, then canceled altogether due to some freak storm. The airline put me on another one first thing in the morning. Annoying, but whatever. I got a cab, came home, expecting to crawl into bed next to my wife. Maybe wake up early enough to surprise her with breakfast before heading back to the airport. I didn't even make it past the front door before realizing I wasn't the only one who had come home that night. The lights were off, but the living room flickered blue from the TV. Some sitcom playing to an audience of no one. Jessica never left the TV on. She always nagged me about wasting electricity, like an extra $5 on the bill was going to bankrupt us. That was the first thing. The second thing was the jacket. A man's jacket, draped over the back of our couch. Not mine. A sick electric current shot through my chest, tightening my throat, hollowing out my stomach. I stepped inside, moving slow, silent, my heartbeat hammering in my ears. The faint sound of movement came from upstairs. Muffled voices. I didn't even think. My legs moved before my mind caught up. The stairs groaned under my weight, but they didn't hear me. The bedroom door was half open. A shadow flickered across the dimly lit hallway. Then her voice, low, teasing, familiar in the worst way. I stepped forward. I saw everything. Jessica, barely covered by our sheets, her golden hair a mess against my pillow, her lips parted, breathless. And him, some guy, younger than me, shirtless, smirking like he belonged there, like I was the intruder. The world narrowed into something small, sharp, suffocating. My fingers curled into fists. My vision tunneled. Jessica turned her head lazily, still in whatever haze she had been floating in, and then her eyes locked onto mine. For a second, she froze. No gasp, no guilt-ridden panic. Just that stunned, deer-in-the-headlights look before she shot up, dragging the sheets around her like some pathetic shield. Ryan! Her voice, confused, almost annoyed, like I was interrupting her. Something inside me snapped. What the hell is this? My own voice sounded foreign, strangled by the rage clawing up my throat. The guy barely reacted. He just glanced at me, then at her, then back at me, like I was the one who needed to explain himself. Jessica's face shifted, shock, then calculation, then something ugly beneath the surface. "You're supposed to be in Chicago," she said. That was it. No apology, no regret, not even a trace of shame. Just an accusation, like I was the one who had screwed up by coming home. I felt my pulse pounding in my skull. My hands trembled, not with fear, but with the kind of anger that makes people do things they regret. I took a step forward. The guy finally sat up, running a hand through his hair. Exhaling like this was just another minor inconvenience in his night. "Hey man," he started, holding up his hands, like I needed calming down. I don't even know what I would have done. I wasn't thinking straight. Every instinct told me to grab something, throw something, hit something. But Jessica had the audacity to roll her eyes. "Jesus, Ryan, can you not make a scene? A scene. A scene." My marriage was burning to the ground in front of me, and she was worried about a scene. I laughed. It just came out. A short, bitter bark of disbelief. She flinched at the sound of it. "Are you serious right now?" I asked, voice shaking with barely controlled fury. She sighed, like she was already exhausted by my overreaction. "Look, we can talk about this later. Just go sleep on the couch or something. Okay? Go. Sleep. On the couch." Like I was some unwanted guest in my own goddamn home. Something in me shattered. Something I didn't even realize I had left to break. I didn't move. Couldn't. My body locked up. My brain short-circuited, caught between blind rage and sheer disbelief. Jessica sat there on our bed. The same bed we bought together. The same bed where we spent lazy Sunday mornings. The same bed where she once traced her fingers over my face and told me she loved me. And she looked at me like I was the problem. Like I was ruining her night. And that guy, he wasn't scared. He wasn't scrambling to get dressed. Wasn't apologizing. Wasn't even trying to explain himself. He just leaned back against the headboard, stretching his arms like this was the most casual situation in the world. Something in me snapped all over again. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a lamp from the dresser, and hurled it. Not at them, not even to hit anything, but just to do something before I lost my goddamn mind. The crash of glass against the wall sent a shockwave through the room. Jessica shrieked. The guy flinched. I pointed a shaking finger at him. Get the hell out. He stared at me, unfazed for a second, then exhaled through his nose, like I was being dramatic. Dude, relax. I took a step forward. His hands went up, not in fear, but in surrender, like he was humoring me. All right. He pushed off the bed, completely unbothered, grabbing his jeans from the floor like this was just another inconvenience. Jessica didn't say a word. Not to him, not to me. She just watched as he pulled on his shirt, took his phone off the nightstand, and walked out. Like that. Like he belonged here, and I was some stranger he was politely excusing himself from. I heard the front door open, then shut, then silence. Jessica sighed, running a hand through her tangled hair. That was unnecessary. I stared at her, blood pounding in my ears. That was unnecessary? My voice was quieter now, but more dangerous. She shrugged. Yeah, you didn't have to throw things. It's not that deep, Ryan. My stomach twisted. Not that deep. Oh, come on. She rolled her eyes. It's not like this was some big romantic thing. It's just fun. A distraction. If you weren't always so busy, maybe I wouldn't need one. The room tilted. She said it so casually, like she was blaming me for this, like she had just admitted to cheating on me in our bed and expected me to nod along. Agree that yeah, I'd been working a lot, so obviously she had needs. I didn't even recognize her anymore. What the hell is wrong with you? My voice came out hoarse, raw. Do you even hear yourself? Oh, please. She flopped back against the pillows. This whole faithful husband thing is cute, but let's not pretend you're some saint. You're gone half the time. You put work before me. When's the last time we actually did anything together? My head spun. That's what this is about? It's about a lot of things, Ryan. She gave me a pointed look. But sure, if you need some clear-cut reason, let's go with that. She was unbelievable. You could have talked to me. My hands were still shaking, my nails digging into my palms. You could have said something. She scoffed. Oh, and what would that have done? You would have promised to fix things? Told me you'd make more time for me? I don't buy it. I stared at her, chest rising and falling too fast. You're disgusting. Her jaw tensed. That got to her. Good. Yeah. She folded her arms. Well, at least I'm not a pathetic little crybaby throwing a tantrum. The world blurred red. I turned around, walked out of the room before I did something I regretted. I needed air. I needed space. I needed to be anywhere but here. Her voice followed me down the hall. Don't expect me to beg for forgiveness, Ryan. I don't regret it. I stopped at the top of the stairs, gripping the banister so hard my knuckles ached. I turned my head just enough to see her, still lounging in our bed, completely unbothered. You will. My voice was quieter now, steady, cold. She smirked. We'll see. I left. But that was just the beginning. I didn't go far. Couldn't. My entire body was wired with adrenaline. My thoughts racing too fast to process what had just happened. I walked out onto the front porch, gulping in the cold night air, hands still trembling with the urge to do something. Scream. Punch a hole in the wall. Set the whole goddamn house on fire. Instead, I just stood there, staring at the empty street, feeling like my life had just been ripped out from under me. Jessica had cheated. Jessica had cheated, and she didn't even care. I wanted to believe I had misheard her, that she had said those things in the heat of the moment, that maybe when I walked back inside, she'd be crying, apologizing, begging me not to leave. But deep down, I knew better. She wasn't going to beg. She didn't regret it, and that made me hate her. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, almost on autopilot. A text from my best friend, Matt. How's Chicago? I let out a bitter laugh. I hesitated for a moment before typing back. Not in Chicago. Came home early. Found Jessica in bed with another guy. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then came back. Finally, his response. Where are you? I sighed. Front porch. Stay there. I'm coming over. I didn't argue. I just shoved my phone back in my pocket and stared out at the quiet, peaceful street that no longer felt like home. 10 minutes later, Matt's car screeched into my driveway like he was ready to start a fight. He barely put it in park before jumping out, his expression a mix of fury and concern. "Tell me you're kidding," he said the moment he saw me. I shook my head. His jaw clenched. "That bitch." I didn't even have the energy to agree. I just exhaled, running a hand over my face. "I don't know what to do." Matt glanced toward the house, his hands curling into fists. "Do you want me to go in there? Because I swear to God." "No," I said quickly. As satisfying as it would be to let Matt storm in and start flipping furniture, it wouldn't change anything. He let out a sharp breath, pacing for a second before turning back to me. "All right, then what's the plan? Are you staying? Leaving? What?" I hesitated. "I don't know." Because I really didn't. I wanted to leave, to walk away and never look back. But at the same time, this was my house, my life, my marriage. I couldn't just disappear. Matt studied me for a moment before nodding. "Okay, then let's make this easier. First question, do you want to try to fix this?" I barked out another bitter laugh. "No." His lips pressed together. "Good. Then let's move on to step 2. How do we make sure she's the one who loses?" That made me pause. Because Jessica had already taken so much from me. My trust, my dignity, my peace of mind. I wasn't about to let her take anything else. A slow, cold determination settled over me. "She wants to act like this doesn't matter?" I muttered. "Fine. Let's see how she feels when she finally sees the pain and truth in my eyes." Matt grinned. "Now we're talking." And that's when the real plan began. I wasn't going to scream at her. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to cry in front of her. No. Jessica wanted to play this off like it was nothing, like I was overreacting. Then I was going to do exactly what she didn't expect. I was going to make her regret it. Matt and I sat in his car for a while talking, planning. He had always been the hot-headed one, ready to throw punches, but even he knew this wasn't about rage. This was about control, about making sure I didn't walk away from this as the broken one. Step 1, don't leave. Jessica expected me to storm out, to give her the house, the space, the upper hand. That wasn't happening. If she wanted to sleep around, she could pack her bags. Step 2, take everything from her before she even realizes it's gone. I had access to our accounts, the mortgage, the bills. Jessica liked to play the role of an independent woman, but I handled all the important things. She didn't even know when half the payments were due. Step 3, expose her. Not in a messy, dramatic way. No social media rants. No trashing her reputation like some bitter ex-husband. No, that was too easy. Jessica was the type who thrived on appearances. She loved being the center of attention, loved playing the role of the perfect wife in front of her friends and family. So I was going to make sure they knew the truth. Not from me, from her. When I walked back into the house, she was still in bed, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. She barely looked up. "Oh, you're back." I stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Yeah, I am." She arched an eyebrow. "Are you going to be normal about this now?" I almost laughed. Normal? I tilted my head, watching her. And then, in the calmest voice I could manage, I said, "Get out." She blinked. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "Pack your things and get out." Her lips curled into a smirk. "Oh, Ryan, come on. Don't be dramatic. We can." "No, Jessica." My voice was even steady, deadly. "I'm not arguing. I'm not yelling. I'm just telling you exactly what's going to happen. You're going to pack your bags, you're going to walk out that door, and you're not coming back." Her smirk wavered. "You can't just." "I can." I took a slow step forward. "This is my house. My name is on the mortgage. You've been living here on my dime while sneaking around behind my back. So, if you think for even a second that I'm going to sit here and let you act like this is normal, you're out of your goddamn mind." For the first time, I saw it. A flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "Ryan, let's be adults about this." Her voice was softer now, calculated. "There's no need to be cruel." I smiled. "Cruel?" I took another step. "Jessica, do you even know what that word means?" She swallowed. Good. I leaned in, lowering my voice. You didn't just cheat, Jess. You spit on our marriage. You looked me in the eye and told me you didn't regret it. So now you get to live with that decision. She licked her lips, glancing toward the door, like she was weighing her options. Fine, she said finally, swinging her legs over the bed. I'll go stay with a friend. Yeah. I let out a breath, stepping back. I bet you will. She stiffened but said nothing. She stood up, grabbed her robe, and walked past me like this was some mild inconvenience. But before she could reach the closet, I added, "Oh, and by the way," she turned, arms folded. "I already called your parents." I smiled. Told them everything. Jessica paled. And that was the moment she finally realized she had lost. Jessica froze. For the first time that night, she actually looked afraid. Not just annoyed, not just inconvenienced. Afraid. My parents. Her voice was quieter now, cautious, like she wasn't sure she had heard me right. I nodded, slow and deliberate. Yeah. Gave them a call while I was outside. I let my words sink in, watching the way her face twitched, the way her fingers tightened around the edge of her robe. Told them everything. How I came home early, what I found, what you said. I tilted my head. They were surprised, to say the least. She inhaled sharply through her nose. You had no right. Oh, I had every right. My voice came out sharper than I expected, but I didn't care. You think you can just screw around in our bed? Tell me to sleep on the couch? And then walk away like nothing happened? Jessica, you burned this bridge. I'm just making sure you choke on the smoke. Her jaw clenched. She wasn't used to this. She was used to control, manipulating the narrative, turning things around so that she was the victim. But now there was no escaping the truth. Her parents were everything to her. She had spent her entire life chasing their approval, playing the role of the perfect daughter. If there was one thing she hated more than being caught, it was being judged. And they were absolutely going to judge her. I could see it all happening in her mind. Her mother's disappointed sighs, her father's silent, crushing disapproval. Jessica could spin this however she wanted with her friends. But her parents? No amount of manipulation would make them look past this. She swallowed hard, her face unreadable. What did they say? I shrugged. Not much. Just that they'd like to speak with you. She turned away, her shoulders tense. I could almost hear the gears in her head grinding, trying to calculate the best way to flip this back in her favor. But there was no fixing this. Not this time. She stormed over to the closet, yanked out a suitcase, and started shoving clothes into it with a little too much force. I leaned against the wall, watching. I'm guessing you're not going to your friend's place after all? I mused. She shot me a glare but didn't respond. I smirked. Tell your parents I said hi. She slammed the suitcase shut. There it was. That anger. That realization that she had lost. Jessica had always been the type to think she was untouchable, that she could do whatever she wanted and get away with it. But now she had nowhere to hide. She grabbed her phone and typed something furiously before turning to me. You think you're so smart, don't you? I smiled. No, Jess. I just finally stopped being stupid. She narrowed her eyes, then exhaled sharply, yanking her suitcase off the bed. Fine. You win, Ryan. I didn't respond, because this wasn't a game. This was justice. She pushed past me, dragging her suitcase down the hall, down the stairs. I followed slowly, savoring every moment, every second of her downfall. She reached the door, hesitated for half a second like she wanted to say something. Maybe one last attempt at manipulating me, maybe one last insult. But then, finally, she just left. And just like that, the house was silent. For the first time all night, I let out a deep, shaky breath. It was over, or at least I thought it was, until my phone buzzed. I pulled it out, expecting Matt, maybe my brother, someone checking in on me. But no, it was Jessica. One new message. I frowned and opened it. Her text was short, simple. You have no idea what you just started. And just like that, I realized this wasn't over. I stared at the message, my fingers tightening around the phone. You have no idea what you just started. What the hell was that supposed to mean? A threat? A bluff? Another one of her manipulations? For a split second, I considered blocking her, shutting her out completely, but something in my gut told me not to. Jessica wasn't done. And if she was planning something, I needed to be ready. I exhaled through my nose, tossing my phone onto the counter. The house felt too big now, too empty. The silence wasn't comforting. It was suffocating. I needed to do something. I needed to move. I grabbed a trash bag and stormed back upstairs. If Jessica thought she could still dig her claws into my life, she was about to get a rude awakening. I ripped open the closet doors, yanking out the things she left behind. Her stupid designer handbags, her makeup, her goddamn hair products that took up half the bathroom. All of it went into the bag. I moved through the room like a man possessed, throwing away every trace of her. Then I stopped. There, on the nightstand, was her wedding ring. She had taken it off. Not last night. Not after I confronted her. Before. A cold realization crept over me. She hadn't even thought about me when she was with him. She had taken the ring off like it was nothing, like it was just an accessory, like I wasn't even part of the equation. I picked it up, turning it between my fingers. Then I threw it into the bag with the rest of her things. She didn't want this marriage? Fine. Then she didn't get to keep a single piece of it. I dragged the bag downstairs, dumped it on the porch, and shot her a text back. Your things are outside. Pick them up whenever. Or don't. I don't care. No response. I locked the door, exhaling through my nose. I was done. Done. Or so I thought. 2 hours later, I heard a car pull into the driveway. I didn't move from the couch. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me rush to the window. A few seconds passed. No knock on the door. No footsteps up the porch. Then my phone buzzed. I sighed, grabbing it, expecting another one of Jessica's cryptic texts. But it wasn't her. It was a picture message. My stomach dropped the second I opened it. It was a photo of Jessica in my driveway. But she wasn't alone. She was with him, the guy from last night, smirking at the camera, his arm slung over her shoulder like he had one. And underneath it, her message, "Hope you don't mind. I brought some help to pick up my stuff. He thinks you two should meet properly this time." My entire body went rigid. I stood up so fast the couch groaned beneath me. This wasn't over. Jessica wanted to play games? Fine. Let's play. I stormed to the front door, my pulse hammering in my ears. My hands clenched into fists as I ripped it open, stepping onto the porch, my eyes locking onto them immediately. There they were, Jessica and him. He leaned against his car like he didn't have a care in the world, arms crossed, smirking like he belonged here. Jessica stood beside him, her phone in one hand, the other resting on her hip, watching me with that same smug expression she always had when she thought she was one step ahead. I didn't say a word at first. I just stared, waiting. He was the first to break the silence. "Hey, man." He grinned like this was funny, like we were about to have some casual chat over beers. "Figured we should finally meet. Considering, you know?" He gestured lazily between himself and Jessica. Jessica let out a little laugh, tilting her head at me. "Ryan, don't be rude. Aren't you going to say hello?" I exhaled slowly, forcing my hands to unclench. I wasn't going to give them what they wanted. Jessica wasn't here to collect her things. She was here to push me, to see if she could still get under my skin, still control the way I reacted. Not this time. I nodded toward the garbage bag on the porch. "Your stuff's there. Take it and go." Jessica rolled her eyes. "Ugh. Ryan, don't be so cold. We're all adults here, right?" "Funny," I said flatly. "You weren't acting like an adult last night." Her smirk faltered just a little. I turned my gaze to him, took him in properly this time. He was younger than me, sure, but not by much. Early 30s, maybe, cocky, self-assured. The kind of guy who walked into a room expecting to be the most interesting person in it. I gave him a once-over and scoffed. "This is what you threw your marriage away for?" I looked back at Jessica. "What's his name?" She hesitated. I smiled. She didn't expect that. Then I turned back to him. "Well," I asked, "since we're all adults here, you got a name?" His jaw tensed slightly before he smirked again. "Mark." I nodded. "Mark. Ha." I let his name roll off my tongue like I was testing it. Then, before either of them could say anything else, I stepped forward, too close. Close enough to make him stiffen, close enough to make Jessica shift uncomfortably. Then I lowered my voice. "Well, Mark," I said, my tone almost casual, almost friendly. "Let me give you some advice, man to man." I leaned in just enough that only he could hear the next part. "She's already planning how to do this to you next." Mark's smirk faltered. I tilted my head, watching the way his fingers twitched at his sides. He didn't like that. He wanted to be the one in control here, the one with the power, but I had just planted a seed of doubt right in his smug little brain. Jessica frowned. "Ryan, what are you?" I didn't let her finish. I laughed. A short, sharp, knowing laugh. "Did she tell you this was the first time?" I asked, looking Mark dead in the eyes. "Did she swear you were special?" Jessica's face twisted with anger. "Shut up." I ignored her. "I bet she told you I was neglecting her." I continued, my tone almost amused now. "That I was too busy, too boring, that she just needed attention." I grinned. "She used to say the same things when we first started dating. About her ex." Mark's smirk was gone. Jessica grabbed the bag off the porch, her movements stiff. Rushed. "We're leaving." I didn't move. I just kept watching Mark. Watching the way his mind was already turning against her. "Good. Let that thought rot inside you, Mark. Let it eat at you every time she smiles at you. Every time she kisses you. Every time she comes home a little too late. Because now, you're just waiting for it to happen to you." Jessica yanked his arm. "Let's go." He hesitated for half a second too long. Jessica saw it. She felt it. And that was my victory. I smiled as they got into the car, as she slammed the door harder than necessary, as they drove off into the night. She thought she could make me jealous. Instead, I made sure she never felt safe again. The second they pulled out of the driveway, I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of pure satisfaction settle in my chest. Jessica thought she could humiliate me, that she could waltz over here with her little boy toy and rub it in my face. Instead, I planted the first crack in their foundation. I watched it happen in real time, and I wasn't done. I stepped back into the house, closing the door behind me, already pulling out my phone. Matt answered on the first ring. "Tell me you didn't let them walk away unscathed," he said instead of a hello. I grinned. "Oh, don't worry. I made sure the seeds of doubt were properly planted." Matt let out a sharp laugh. "Good. But you're not stopping there, right?" "Nope." I opened my laptop, sitting down at the kitchen table. "Jessica wants to play games? Then let's make it interesting." See, Jessica was good at controlling the narrative. She would try to twist things, downplay it, act like I was just the bitter, scorned husband who couldn't handle the fact that she'd moved on. But the truth was a beautiful thing, and I had receipts. Every text she sent me dismissing my concerns. Every time she gaslit me into thinking I was imagining things. Hell, I even had bank statements showing all the little gifts she had bought while I was out of town. And the best part? She wasn't just some random girl cheating on her husband. She was the self-proclaimed relationship expert in her social circle. She was the one who gave advice to all her friends, the one who prided herself on knowing how to keep a man happy. She was about to be exposed for the fraud she was. I clicked open my email and typed out a message. To Jessica's mom and dad. Subject: "Just so you know." Then I started attaching everything. Screenshots, receipts, everything I had collected over the last few months. Matt whistled through the phone. "Damn, you're going full scorched earth." "She earned it," I said simply, hitting send. But I wasn't stopping there. Jessica had always been obsessed with her image. She wasn't just an ordinary woman. She was an influencer. A micro-influencer, technically, but with enough of a following that she took it very seriously. Her whole brand was built around self-love, empowerment, and being an independent, loyal woman. I opened Instagram, went to her latest post, a sickeningly sweet caption about knowing your worth in relationships. I scrolled to the comments. Her followers adored her. Women praising her for being an inspiration. People thanking her for her wisdom. I smirked. Then I left a comment. Just one. "Curious. Do your followers know how many married men you've slept with? Or is that a lesson for next week?" I hit post. Then I sat back and waited. Because if there was one thing I knew about Jessica, she could lie to my face. She could gaslight me. She could pretend I was the bad guy. But the one thing she could never handle was being exposed. It didn't take long for the fire to catch. Jessica always thrived on attention. But this was a spotlight she wasn't ready for. At first, my comment just sat there, unnoticed. But then someone liked it. Then another. Then a third. And then the replies started. Wait, what? Is this real? Receipts or it didn't happen? Oh, don't worry. I had receipts. I didn't even have to post them myself. Jessica's followers were already digging, already questioning. A few of her friends, the ones who had been suspicious of her for a while, started commenting too. One girl even DM'd me, asking if it was true. So I sent her a single screenshot. Jessica, texting me 2 months ago. Ugh. I swear if you weren't so busy all the time, I wouldn't even need a distraction. The girl left me on read. 5 minutes later, she posted the screenshot herself. And that's when the storm hit. Jessica's DMs must have been flooded because not even 10 minutes later, she posted a frantic Instagram story. A black screen, just white text. There are some nasty rumors going around, and I want to set the record straight. People love to twist things when they don't have the full story. She didn't deny it. She didn't own up to it, either. Classic Jessica, always leaving room to manipulate. But this time, it wasn't working. The comments kept coming. So, what's the full story then? Why aren't you denying it? Girl, just say you cheated and go. I sat back in my chair, watching her world crumble in real time. But the best part? I wasn't done. Because while she was scrambling to put out one fire, I was about to light another. I picked up my phone and sent a text to Mark. Hope you're enjoying the show. He responded almost immediately. F you. I grinned. So it had started. Mark wasn't stupid. He had already looked uncomfortable when I planted the idea in his head. Now that the internet was confirming what I told him, he was realizing that Jessica wasn't special. That she wasn't some victim of a bad marriage looking for love. That she was just a liar. I typed back. Tell me, Mark, did she swear you were? But I knew exactly what was happening. The only one. Did she tell you I was the problem? That she'd never done this before. No response. Jessica was panicking, trying to control him just like she always did. But Mark wasn't me. He wasn't invested. He didn't have years of love and marriage making him blind. He had nothing to lose. And when people have nothing to lose, they turn on you. I leaned back, watching as Jessica's empire cracked, then collapsed. And all I had to do was let it happen. It happened faster than I expected. Jessica's downfall wasn't a slow, agonizing burn. It was a complete collapse, a free fall. By the next morning, she had deleted every social media account. Instagram, gone. TikTok, nuked. Even her Facebook, which she'd had since college, had disappeared. She had spent years building her brand, and I destroyed it in one night. But that wasn't even the best part. At around noon, my phone buzzed. Jessica's mom. I smirked and answered. Hello. Silence. Then a sigh. Ryan. I leaned back, waiting. I'm sorry, she said finally, her voice tight, forced. I don't even know what to say. Jessica must have called her, must have tried to spin the story. But the screenshots had done all the talking. I let the silence stretch, let her sit in it. Where is she? I asked finally. Another pause. She came here last night. Of course she did. The prodigal daughter, running home. She's upset, Ryan. Her mom added, almost defensive now. You humiliated her. I laughed. Actually laughed. Jessica's mom flinched at the sound of it. She humiliated herself? I said coldly. All I did was hold up a mirror. There was nothing left to say after that. Jessica's parents weren't bad people. They were old-fashioned, though. Conservative. Judgmental. They would never forgive her for this. Not fully. Jessica had spent her whole life chasing their approval. And now, she would never get it back. I hung up before her mom could respond. Matt showed up a few hours later, carrying a case of beer. Tell me you've seen the latest. He tossed his phone onto the counter. I picked it up and laughed. Mark. The idiot Mark had gone rogue. He had made a post. A full, public post calling Jessica out. Saying she had lied to him, made him believe she was trapped in a loveless marriage, that he felt disgusted and used. He even tagged her, or tried to. Her account was gone. Jesus? I muttered, scrolling through the thousands of brutal comments. Matt grinned. She's gonna have to leave the country after this. Jessica had thought she was untouchable, that she could cheat, lie, manipulate, and walk away unscathed. But now, she had nothing. Her reputation? Destroyed. Her relationship? Over. Her family? Disappointed. Her ego? Shattered. And me? I was free. For the first time in years, I breathed. Really, truly breathed. Jessica had betrayed me. But in the end, I won.